Hey, what's up guys? Ryan here with Seagull Stand-Up Paddleboards, and today I just wanted to show you the difference that the pressure makes in a board. When you get these boards up to around 8 PSI, it's pretty hard to tell the difference by feeling it. The difference between 8 PSI and 15 PSI. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to paddle this thing at a bunch of different pressure levels. We've got a little solar powered gauge over here right on the valve, and so I'm going to paddle across a couple times, let out a bit of pressure, keep paddling, a bit of pressure, and show you guys how even though it feels hard when you're on dry land, it makes a world of difference when you're out on the water. Okay, so when I go out there, right now this board's at 17 PSI. As you can see, it feels pretty hard, looks pretty hard. 17 PSI is about what I paddle at normally. If I get into choppier conditions, or if I'm going a little bit faster, I'll bump it up to 20 PSI. But I think you're gonna see the difference with 17 PSI going down from there. So let's take this thing out. So one thing to really notice here is the water line on the board, how it's below the sea gods at the lower PSI ranges. You're going to notice maybe not the board flexing so much, but the water line's definitely going to change.
So that's 14.6 PSI.
So around 14 PSI, this is our lowest recommended. You can even see at this difference, the water line has already changed a little bit. And the side-to-side stability hasn't been affected too much, but it still is affected.
So that's 13.3 PSI.
Again, seeing that water line come up on the side of the board's just not quite as buoyant at the lower PSI ranges as it is at the higher PSI ranges.
12.3 PSI.
So even at 12.3, you can notice at my feet, the water is starting to pool a little bit. It's because at the lower pressure, where the rider stands, the walls of the board may remain at 6 inches, but my feet are starting to sink in the middle of the board.
Even at 12.3, it still feels extremely hard. So this is 10.4 PSI.
So it's really noticeable here, the water pooling at my feet. So the board along the length seems like it's rigid, but standing in the middle of a board at this low PSI is similar to standing on a waterbed.
9.4 PSI.
Now you can really notice the side-to-side stability here. I make myself look good because I paddle all the time, but you can see that I'm going side to side quite a bit.
That's 7.6 PSI.
So now there's full-on puddles of water where my feet are standing because I'm sinking into the board so much, and you can see the nose and the tail are starting to rock with each paddle.
Still feels hard as a rock, but the side-to-side stability is getting pretty bad. 6.3 PSI.
So even in the calm conditions, the side-to-side is getting a little bit rough. It's not as easy to notice because the water is so calm, but if there was a couple of waves, I'd be falling off this board right away.
5 PSI.
So I was actually surprised I could still do pivot turns at this low PSI, but this thing is junk to paddle at this point.
Water was starting to pool on the board at 5 PSI. It still feels pretty hard. 3.9 PSI.
Now you can see it's starting to fold just a tiny bit where my feet are. The water is not shedding at all anymore where my feet are.
.1 PSI.
Again, now it's just turning into like similar to paddling a floppy banana in the water. It's pushing more water than, and your efficiency is completely gone at this point.
1 PSI.
Finally at 1 PSI you can see it's folding right in half. So you can still paddle this board, but the performance isn't there, the efficiency isn't there, and the stability is completely crap. So if it was a little tiny bits of waves or anything like that, I'd fall off right away, and the fact that I pulled off a pivot turn still surprises me when I watch this video.
One thing you might notice as I come out of this water is this board's only at 1 PSI right now, but it still has the board shape. It's not as hard, but it's still hard, and people who aren't used to it might think that this is a hard board, or a hard inflatable board, to be clear, but it's not. And we saw out there as the PSI comes down, the board starts to fold where the rider is. Water starts to pool, performance is garbage, and before you know it, you can't even really paddle, you're just pushing water. So, make sure you get your board up to our recommended pressure, 14 PSI minimum, max 20 PSI, you're going to see major performance gains.